Oh, good. Good, good, good. How you doing, Bill? Good. Uh, Howard asked me to cover for Keith. He will not be able to make it today. Um, the discussion they wanted to, well, the topic he wanted to discuss was what do we want to, what are we going to be doing the first spring day if we get out and actually start tearing into our hives, which is I was thinking about that today, and it's interesting. Everybody has their own modes of method. Now this is advanced, so I'm assuming that most people here aren't really looking for advice. They're just, we're going to discuss it with each other. Um, if you want to be advanced, you can listen and take in what you hear because, we're all learning. Several of us more seasoned beekeepers get stuck in their ways. I know how I come out of winter every year. I do the same exact thing. The bees, you take your 10 to 20% loss and clean out your equipment. That's typically my first thing that I do in the spring. I see Paul got a jump on it as far as cleaning out the equipment. Any dead outs, shake them out. The longer you leave that wax in there, when the weather starts to get warm, the more appetizing it looks to critters, whether it be wax moths or whatever. Dead bees start stinking. Dead bees is a mass of organic matter that smells just like any other dead thing that sits there and rots. So you want to clean all that out for sure. Again, you can if you have a dead out now. This weekend here is a good weekend to shake some dead bees out into the weeds. Store your equipment like you would normally store your equipment. You can leave the boxes outside. Obviously the boxes are weatherproof. There's no sense in wrapping them up and putting them in the garage. Leave them on your stands, and then you can in the spring you can load them up with nukes, make your splits. Your boxes are still there. So the first again, spring, it's starts earlier for some people. Chester County's pretty big up here in the north. We're usually a week or two behind you guys down in the south. I saw Donna on. She's down in Haverty Grace, Maryland. So she's at least 2 weeks earlier than I am. So her spring is just around the corner. That's for sure. Just like Paul was saying, the bees will start brooding up here shortly. You're going to have to swarm management is going to start to be on your to-do list. That's for sure. Whether when you get in your hives first thing in the spring, you want to see where your bees are. Are they located in the top box? Are they located in the bottom box? How much stores do you have left? Really do an assessment of your hives, in the spring. That's going to determine how well they do. If they're in the top box and you let them stay in the top box, more than likely you're going to have a swarming issue. You want to get that queen down into the bottom box. If you only have a single box, don't worry about it. Obviously, she's down there already. That's when you want to start thinking about supers, queen excluders, if that's your route. If you're doing the long layings, that's a different brood management system that I don't think I'm going to touch base on because I'm not very familiar with it. There are every different type of box, whether you got 8 frame, 10 frame, nukes. The bees that are in it have their individual attitudes. I don't want to say attitudes, behaviors. Some eat more than others, some winter better, so you have to make that assessment first thing in the spring. I don't think I would jump on taking my wraps off. If you wrapped your hive, keep your wraps on. Honestly, I run insulated hives, so it's basically my hives are wrapped all year round. But the spring is still a little bit early to be taking your wraps off. When I say spring, we're talking March, late March, early April. There's still many opportunities for chilled brood. You get some cold evenings, some 30-degree cold evenings with small bee clusters. But keep your wraps on until until the nighttime lows are in the mid 40s, maybe even 50s. That's when I would recommend thinking about taking your wraps off if that's the route you're going to take. There's no rush to get them off. The bees are going to be just fine whether they're warm or they're going to be better if they're insulated than not.
Yeah, one thing I'm going to do, Ed, is when we get a real nice day, I'm going to look at the bottom box, and if it's empty, I'll take it out because I don't need the bees that are trying to keep things at 95 degrees to waste heat and warm up two deeps if only they need to warm up one.
Yeah, again, that's part of your spring assessment. And honestly, that's something you can even do the next day or so. If you got to drop a box off real fast, you don't want to spend hours out in your hives today. The next couple of days, don't get too excited about the 50-degree Saturday or 60-degree Saturday, and then chill your hives. So, but yeah, in the spring for sure, get your queens down in the bottom. Right now, it's not a bad time to consolidate your hives, like Paul was just saying. Get your empty boxes off because you're like, it's not doing anything good for the bees. It eventually becomes unprotected space, and you go on that spring vacation, you'll come back and you're going to have a lot of nasty stuff in your hives. So, but again, going back to the spring, just you want to do a thorough assessment of where everything is, how it's laid out. The queen health. Do you even have a queen? Some queens don't overwinter. It's not the fault. It's not your fault. It's not the hive's fault. Just queens die over the winter. I've had several hives that came out of winter with no queens, and you gotta take measures to get them queen right again. And that's never a fun thing to do in the spring, but it happens. So again, as part of your spring assessment, check your hive stores. Because even in the early spring, we're talking April, flowers are still just barely coming out. At least up here they are. So although the red maples might be popping, which has a small amount of nectar and tons of pollen, they're making bees. But if there's no food in there, they're not going to make very many bees.
When do you put out your Gatorade?
My Gatorade's out right now.
Is it?
It is.
Were they visiting the Gatorade today?
They were visiting the Gatorade today.
I was tempted to put my Gatorade out today, but I didn't do it. But I was going to text you, and I was like, Ed, where's your Gatorade? And I sort of figured you had it out.
Yeah, I got so many bees in the backyard right now. It's kind of ridiculous.
You want to share people about your Gatorade, or you let?
Oh yeah, one of the since George brought it up, but one of the things I do is I don't do it. I feed my bees Gatorade. You say Gatorade. Yeah. I get the dry mix. Now, again, I don't have any proof or anything that says this is great for the bees, this is bad for the bees, but my bees are doing well. And again, it could be a feel good activity. I don't know. But I do the 5-gallon bucket of water, a gallon of dry Gatorade mix, and about 2 cups of sugar in it. And again, it's not for feeding. There's not enough sugar. There's not enough Gatorade in there for feeding, but it's a great water source. There's the electrolytes are in it. I don't know if the color matters or not. It probably does.
So what's your ratio again? 5 gallons of water, 2 cups of sugar, and
1 gallon of dry. Well, the equivalent is 4 scoops of dry Gatorade mix, which is equivalent to make one. It's supposed to make 1 gallon of Gatorade.
Got it. So it's a fifth of the.
It's not enough. It's not enough to create a food or anything like that, but it gives them a great water source close by. It keeps them out of your neighbor's water fountains. I can't imagine that the ingredients of the Gatorade, can't be helping them.
Because we heard some other beekeepers last year adding electrolytes to their feeds early on, coming out of winter. Frank from Exton Bee, I don't know if Frank's on tonight, but he does that, when his first feeding. Again, it's too early to put liquid feed in your hives, but when he does that, he's putting electrolytes in his feed. So it's
sure.
You're not alone in giving them a little electrolytes, Ed.
But yeah, I'm doing that now just because, they're all over the yard and it kind of keeps them consolidated.
So you bring it in at night so it doesn't cool off, I assume? Or
No.
no. Simple beekeeping.
Yeah. Yeah. They're on it first thing in the morning. They don't care what temperature it is.
Really, huh?
Yeah. At least they were today.
Do you have any idea how much of the day they'll take of that or?
Yeah. Yeah. On a good day. Well, between yesterday and today, they took I did half a bucket yesterday, and they took that whole half bucket yesterday, when I got home from work.
It was gone.
Yeah, so that was about 3 gallons.
How do they take it? What kind of a drip system do you have?
It's a 5-gallon bucket, and I drilled a 1/8 holes around the. There's a corrugated rim for strength. They're Home Depot buckets. If you drill a 1/8 hole just below, if your bucket's upside down, you drill it just below that lip, it creates like a chicken feeder.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, but I do it with a 5-gallon bucket, and I use the thread on lids so I can easily refill it.
Oh, a thread 5-gallon lid?
Yeah. Home Depot and Lowe's, it's got the outer rim. It clips onto the bucket, and then it's got this really coarse thread with an O-ring around it.
Okay.
It's for food grain, for storing food and stuff.
Okay.
But it's a watertight lid.
Yeah.
And then I flip it upside down. It leaks out for a second once it gets that air seal, and then it's good to go.
Wow.
And Ed, do you find dead bees from drowning? Because I was just watching a YouTube video that said the bees can actually drink the cold water, and because it's so cold, they go into like a stupor state and can actually just drown themselves.
There's a normal amount of dead bees, but nothing. I'm not scooping piles off the bucket or anything.
Yeah.
But if they don't go to that bucket, they're going to find the next icy hole on the ground. It's not like that water's any colder than any other water they're going to find. It's amazing how much water they bring in now. I didn't use any top ventilation in any of my hives. And they're all still going out trying to get water.
That's amazing. 3 gallons in a day.
Yeah. In the summer, it's even more. They'll empty that bucket by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And yeah, but the bees are thirsty right now. I mean, we've had a couple good days, and if you look at all your bird feeders and all your mud holes, and they're all surrounded by bees.
Last year was the first time I heard of a bunch of people doing these spring electrolytes. So
yeah, I heard the same thing. That's why I gave it a rip. Yeah.
And how many hives do you have, Ed?
30. Well, 20, 25 now. I lost 5. A couple late nukes. One of them was a swarm that I picked up around the corner over by Justin. I picked up a little softball sized swarm that I thought I could nurse it through. Some of them the ones that died were not shockers. I can't say, when you lift the box up and it was heavy. No, nothing like that. These are just cold, dead bees. There's a cluster of dead bees.
We got to get people to make their splits and their nukes up in June, right? Not later.
Yeah.
I keep on learning that those highs that you start up in July or August, I think their winter survival is much less than if you start them in June. They just don't have the time to get the population right, get the food organized or something. They just struggle to make
and that's most likely true for making split. Now you catch a late swarm, you can build them up pretty fast because they have all the bees that they need.
Huh.
If you put them on drawn comb, they'll build up pretty fast.
Huh.
But as far as making the nukes up, starting from scratch, yeah, you're playing a dangerous game. But it's really no loss. I mean,
right. I mean, correct.
I look at the 5 that I lost, and 2 of them were 10 framers, singles. but I look at it as, it's equipment that I can make splits into.
Right.
I don't believe I will inspect them, but they do an autopsy of the dead out to make sure it wasn't anything nasty why they died. If they just ran out of food or it was too small of a cluster, that's good equipment you can use right into it. But you don't want to believe, you want to check to make sure it wasn't disease or anything like that before you go reusing old equipment.
Diane's asking about your Gatorade showing up in your honey.
There's not enough sugar in there. It's so light on sugar. I can't imagine that there's anything that they could store. Mind you, a cup of water at 5 gallons is 60. What's there? Four cups? I don't even know the ratio.
4 cups to a gallon. 4 quarts to a gallon.
Yeah, 4 cups to a quart.
Helga's
And-
saying that he's doing water and rocks instead of Gatorade, probably salts and electrolytes coming out of those rocks.
Yeah, again, like I said, the amount of sugar that is in there is so minimal. I can't imagine they're storing any of it.
And Fred's wondering, where are you? I'm in Warwick Township.
Fred.
Fred Reiser.
Warwick. He's right down the road. I'm up here in Pottstown.
So are you saying you use 1 cup of water per 5 gallons or 1 quart?
What?
One cup.
5 gallons of water, right, Ed?
Yes, 5 gallons of water, 1 cup of sugar.
And 4 tablespoons of dry Gatorade. What flavor, Ed?
Oh,
I use fruit punch. They like the fruit punch. I'll be honest. I did try the Frost Blast of blue stuff, and they were not nearly as excited to go for it.
All of a sudden tomorrow, all the Gatorade will be sold out of Amazon.
Yeah. Walmart $7 for the it makes about 8 gallons. Yeah, it comes with a scooper. So 4 of these little scoops
Mhm.
make a gallon, and that's what I use. So again, it's a fun thing to do. I don't know if it has any benefit, but it's a feel good activity, and it's a good way to get your little chair out and watch the bees just sit there and kind of suckle on the side there. In the winter, it's a good place. In the fall, it's a good place to catch all your yellow jackets.
They were out there looking for stuff today. They were having a hard time finding anything, but they were out there.
Yellow
Yeah.
jackets.
No, the honeybees were out.
Oh yeah.
They were looking.
Yeah, they were. In fact, I got all those frames, the apiary frames. They were even looking all over them that they picked them dry in the fall, and they're still looking at them. I did have a couple of nukes that were light. I put some food on. It's not a bad idea if you lift your hives. Like say, we got a couple good days to put some fondant or some sugar bricks, what have you, on your hives if they're light. We're not out of the woods yet. There is a good chance if they're flying now, they'll be flying in 2 months. But again, we're not out of the woods. When they start brooding up, they become machines as far as pollen and nectar and reserves go. They will chew through a box of reserves fast. Hopefully our spring's not too wet. We'll get a good nectar flow early. Now, unfortunately, that also means an early swarm season. So you want to keep an eye on that as well. Anyone running the single brood chambers, I think Paul gave it a rip, and you learn early that it's hard to keep them from swarming. So swarm prevention with single boxes starts earlier than they do with double boxes.
Once was enough.
Yeah, I run single, so my springtime is pretty exciting.
You gotta
Yeah.
have a knack for it, I guess.
Or either the knack for it or a glutton for punishment.
Well, when I saw the single brood chamber had 10 frames that had brood on it, I said, this is not sustainable.
Yeah, they're brooded up wall to wall in the spring. Yeah, you got to really stay on top of them. That's for sure. Yeah, that's what I got. We can go ahead and open discussion up. Anybody got any questions or any kind of suggestion you're thinking about what you want to do when you first get into your hives, or any kind of tips you want to give to somebody else? And like I say, everybody's got their own techniques.
I'm feeding diluted honey.
Diluted
Okay.
honey.
What was that, Hiroshi?
I'm feeding, last year's honey saved, diluted with water, and feeding the honey to the bees.
Hiroshi, I am doing the same exact thing.
Why do you dilute it? Why not just give them the straight honey?
Straight honey, they're gonna take water anyway and to dilute the honey in the hive, so it's easier for them to digest.
And it works out better in the feeders, right? Especially at the temperatures. Even though the inside of the feeder is warm, it's not warm per se. The honey is still, if you don't dilute it just a little bit, we're not talking like splitting her in 50%, but if you don't dilute it, it's it gets pretty, I don't want to say firm, but very syrupy. So if you dilute it a little bit,
Right,
it's
but
able
then
to flow in your feeders a little better.
yeah, but then the idea, it's probably better than the Gatorade.
It is. And because what I do in the spring, here's a little tip for what I do in the spring is right before the flow, I do an extraction. I try to get all that honey out of the hives for the new flow. And I store that honey for my fall feeding.
Yeah,
I call it my junk honey because some of it was on there during your vaporization. You may have had some on there when you shouldn't have, and something I don't know if I would particularly care for selling for honey for human consumption, but I store it and feed it back to them in the fall.
yeah, but my idea is, like you said, they are not gonna store when they are collecting now. They're consuming for the either giving to the brood or consume themselves. So there's no need to worry about the how diluted or how concentrated honey is. It's just a carbohydrate. So better than the Gatorade. So they have the natural things to eat.
And the other advantage to that is you don't have to worry about that. If you do sugar water opposed to honey, you don't have to worry about them, storing sugar water in your honey reserves. They're storing honey in their honey reserves.
Right. Yeah.
Again, it's just a tip. That's just the way I do it. I've been doing it for years that way. I'm not recommending it to anybody. That's just the way I do it. It's not a bad idea. Like say, I keep my overwintered honey separate from my honey that I sell.
Yeah.
And it's great to sell right back or put right back into the hives. Thanks for bringing that up, Hiroshi.
Welcome.
Yeah. I'm always a little nervous about telling people to feed bees. Now do that internal feeders. Do not open feed honey. Oh my God. I don't know if you guys ever tried that.
I open feed.
That?
I open feed.
Oh,
See, I use the old comb frame
yeah.
and either spray the syrup, honey syrup, or pour into the cell. So I've been doing about 4 years every spring and fall. So I'm not worried about the storing, their storing, because of the purpose for this feeding is emergency. So only when they come out, they look for either pollen or something to eat.
Yeah, Hiroshi, are you putting those frames back into the hive or are you setting them out next to your back patio?
Pardon me?
You say you're filling your frames up with the honey.
Yeah, in the sun. Yeah, whoever the sun is. So
Oh.
I usually put it in side wall of the shed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in my particular case, with the 30 hives in my backyard, my backyard becomes a cloud.
Yeah, yeah, it does.
And the front yard and the side yard.
Yeah.
It looks like something from a movie when I put honey out. So I don't do that anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got scary sometimes but right now, I think the population or the numbers of the bees getting it every day, it's a little more because foragers, the bees coming out now is probably older bees, and they know how to navigate. And then I see right now the front of the hives, they're learning the training and the orientation flight. Many bees are doing the orientation flight now.
Yeah.
There
Also, one of the things that that bees, there's bee genetics that control their behavior. I have several hives that have yet to come out of the hive. You crack the lid, it is a giant pile of bees alive.
Yeah.
So before you go counting your bees as dead, pop the lid and see what's going on. Because like say some genetics, the bees aren't ready to come out yet.
Sure.
It's not a horrible genetic trait to have either.
Right.
So Ed, I have one hive that yesterday there were no bees coming out of, and I thought it was dead because it's so warm. I didn't touch it. Today there's bees all over it. Now, is it because the hive's alive, or is it because the other bees are robbing out the rest of the honey in there?
Well, it could go, obviously without looking at it, it could go either way. If you're familiar with robbing behavior, you can quickly deduce the difference between robbing behavior and a lot of bees just excited to see the sunlight. So again, I can't, without looking at it, I can't say yes or no, but it's not uncommon to see that where bees, I've got several big hives that did not come out yesterday, but they are quite alive. It's a good genetic trait to have. If you get bees to come out on any half sunny day, they burn themselves out. They burn themselves out. If they can stay in cluster, the longer the better. We say bees adapt, but I think it's more selection than adaptation. Bee instinct, a spider doesn't practice or learn how to spin a web. They just know how to spin a web. Bees are the same way. The bees collect honey not even knowing that winter's coming, because they don't know anything about winter. They were born before winter and they'll die before winter. They just know that's their job. So I think bee genetics are, ingrained in them, instinctual, I guess is the word we're looking for. So yeah, you want to try to find that the genetics promote strong genetics. You're not going to train a bee to juggle balls or anything like that. They're born with everything they need to know.
And I have a question about springtime.
Go ahead.
You know, you're talking about the things to do in spring, but what's spring for you? Do you look at temperatures? Are you looking at the trees and when they start to bud, maybe the willows, or what are the signs for you that says, hey, it's spring, or you're looking at the bees' behavior?
Obviously, it's a whole cavalcade of triggers. Typically, when I call spring is when the overnight lows are 45 and above. You know, because you can't really, you don't want to, even though you'll get these rogue 60-degree, well, just like this weekend coming up, we got a beautiful looking Saturday. That's not the beginning of spring. When your overnight lows are consistently above 40, I think that I say that's when spring starts for me. Because, you know, then you can start thinking about what the bees are starting to do. Paul turned me on last year to the accumulative growing days, which I thought was a hoax until I started doing a little more research about it. And, you know, it's a real thing. Now, Paul has a website that he might be able to share with us that kind of keeps track of that for your area.
Yeah, I put it in the newsletter, my section of the newsletter. There's a link there.
Okay, perfect. And that gives, because obviously bees are instinctual, like we were saying earlier. So you always question, what is the trigger? What triggers the bees to start brooding up? You know, they don't have a calendar. They don't know what's going to happen next week.
I said it was warm, and for 4 years of data, that's all I've found. My bees do it between 80 and 100 accumulated growing degree days, and we're only at 84 right now. So they're right on the cusp. So you heard earlier, I've looked at 6 hives, and there's no eggs at all, but in Swarthmore, they have eggs.
Sure, and it's quickly approaching. That's for sure. It's quickly approaching. Now,
I look for the silver maples to go into bloom. They're right behind me. There's a whole row of them, and when they start blooming, then the bees start really going.
so now, Paul, what I'll do, which is interesting, because I run all insulated beehives. They have an R value of about 7.
Yeah.
Saturday, if it really is nice, I may pull a frame or 2 out of a single just to see what's going on.
Yeah.
And see if the insulated beehives have anything that have any modification to to the accumulated growing days.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I think it would delay them. Just my gut feeling.
That may be true, but I know, well, I mean, I run singles, so that delay is countered by the fact that it's a single box.
Could be, yeah.
Well, we're getting ready to wrap up. I don't know if that answered your question or not. That's one of my keys is the overnight lows start to maintain the 45 and above. I feel comfortable with being able to tear hives apart. Anyone else got anything or want to discuss or anything? Bueller?
Hey, Ed,
Yeah.
this is Eric. I'm in Philly, and one of the things I was just reading this book that was in the American Bee Journal recommended about the Irish bees, and so they're thinking they have this line of the black bees, you know, that might be kind of pure, and one of the what do you call it? One of the characteristics that they look for is the flight in colder temperatures. So it's just back to what you were just talking about just a moment ago. I'm curious. I have one hive, and it's in my most insulated. I have a big one of those. I'm running for the first year. This one that's one of those long hives with that's insulated, and those bees are flying at 45 degrees consistently. Always the first ones to be flying. So I don't know if it's genetics. It's kind of counterintuitive because it seems the most insulated. But it's just interesting that these Irish beekeepers, that's one of the characteristics they're looking for their native bees that they like, is this flying in colder temperature.
Yeah, and I think that is a genetic trait, and honestly, that's something that I would try to breed out of my bees because there's nothing for them to do out at 40 degrees.